Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul. Who will win? What started as a hoax and petty rumors soon became a reality. Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul are going to brawl it out in an exhibition match. In this video, we're analyzing Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul. Who will win? Rumors of this fight had been floating around social media for over 2 months before someone finally took a stand and gave the people some answers. The answer came through an Instagram post made by Floyd Mayweather confirming the fight. Many journalists came out and began writing articles that Floyd had no reason to do this, and that he was the only one who had anything to lose. But Floyd has been tempted to come out of retirement before, and he has only done so on 2 occasions before this one. His fight against Japanese kickboxer Tenshin Nasukawa and UFC superstar Conor McGregor. Floyd's fight with Logan might arguably be the easier one due to the massive difference in skill set and because Logan Paul has never won a boxing match in his professional career. But that can very easily work against Floyd. People have seen this guy win against formidable opponents, many of whom were supposed to beat Floyd, but no one ever did. People might be expecting too much from Floyd, as was the case in the fight versus Conor. Most people see Floyd's record and think he must be the most dominant fighter ever in history. But the truth is, Floyd isn't the biggest fighter or the strongest one. So if you're expecting Floyd to knock Logan out in the first round, that might not be happening. Another major issue people have with this fight is that why does it even need to be a thing? Why Logan Paul after all? The answer to that is money. If Floyd can bank hundreds of millions of dollars in an exhibition match fighting with an amateur, why wouldn't he? It would be the easiest money he'd ever make. So when it comes to making a lot of money, both Logan and Floyd are winning. Now, there are still a lot of people who seriously do think that Floyd Mayweather can be beaten, and they have some valid arguments. For starters, Floyd is much shorter than Logan, almost 4 to 5 inches smaller, and Logan has the wider wingspan at 76 inches. That isn't an advantage that just goes by unnoticed. It does give Logan an edge over Floyd, but we're talking about a man who's faced opponents much more competent and with better ability. That isn't a dig at Logan Paul, but when you look at some of the boxers Floyd has faced, the likes of Ricky Hatton, Manny Pacquiao, and Miguel Cotto, you can understand that Floyd Mayweather is a sore winner with not a single blemish in his career. To think that someone like Logan Paul can beat Floyd somehow could be considered laughable. But stranger things have happened over the past year, and people will be looking for the unlikeliest of upsets. Logan Paul did look quite good in his fight against KSI, and seemed to have gained some extra pounds for the second fight. It didn't make him grow sluggish or make him lose his speed. But Logan Paul did lose to KSI, and he was bigger than him too. The main factor to take away from here is that Logan and KSI were much closer to each other when it came to height and weight. That is why boxing has weight classes to begin with. Floyd and Logan is a mismatch when it comes to weight and size, which is why the rules could be altered for the fight, but it is yet to be seen if they will. The mere fact that we're talking about Floyd like he's an indestructible titan of boxing is because he is. Even at 43, Floyd still has the technical skill set to best pretty much any opponent. When it comes to the brute sheer power, Logan might edge it, but that doesn't mean Floyd's a soft puncher. When people talk about the Conor versus Floyd fight, there's a couple of things they would recall. One of them being an uppercut Conor landed on Floyd, and another being the mere fact that Conor was able to go on for such a long time in the same ring as Floyd. He ended up losing, but we've all grown so accustomed to Floyd winning that it doesn't have the same impact anymore. Winning is the brutal norm for Floyd Mayweather. Like him or not, he is a champion with probably the best record in boxing history. So when you put him against someone like Logan Paul, you'll know that there's no way Logan can win this fight, but he can catch those short moments that can give him a win. Like Conor's uppercut, if Logan can land some punches, if he can do some damage, and if he can somehow take this fight to the later rounds, he might as well have won the match. It won't be quite as simple though, as it was clear in the fight between Logan and KSI. It won't be quite as simple though, as it was clear in the fight between Logan and KSI. KSI was able to land some jabs and body punches and uppercuts, which did significant damage and slowed Logan down. If he has any shot of going to the 7th or 8th round against Floyd, he will need to be more resilient. Which brings us to our next point, strategy. It's an exhibition match, people. It's not an official boxing match, there are no titles on the line, and there probably won't be tight margins that decide who will win. But without a doubt, the stakes are much higher for Floyd than they are for Logan. Because Floyd dominates the sport of boxing for the past 3 decades, even at his age, Floyd is expected to be perfect all the time. He's not getting any younger, but he somehow seems to keep demolishing his opponents who are younger than him. Can you imagine what would happen if Logan Paul, the YouTuber, vlogger, ex-Vine star, somehow manages to beat Floyd Mayweather, it would be talked about for years, if not decades. It would be a huge slap on the whole boxing community as a whole. So Floyd has more pressure on his shoulders, but this is a man who's been in worse spots over his career. For Logan, realistically, the best he can hope for is winning the crowd. He can do that if he paces himself and doesn't exhaust his gas tank. He would be talking to his coaches about it as well, and they would have analyzed Floyd's older matches to figure out what their most effective plan can be. For Logan, all he needs to do is stay in the fight for as long as possible. He needs to make Floyd move around rather than the other way. It's much easier said than done, but if Logan can take advantage of things like his weight and his size, he can do a good job in the ring. Logan Paul could very well earn the respect of millions of people watching and of Floyd's if he stays disciplined throughout the fight and stays in it. Regardless, many people would like to think that Logan Paul has already won by even getting a chance to fight Floyd Mayweather. Which brings us on to our final point. Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul are two very different people. They have lived extremely different lives and have had widely varying career paths, but both of them will soon find them in the same ring for a short amount of time. Logan Paul has arguably had a more controversial career. It all went downhill for him after he recorded a certain video in a Japanese forest, which made international news and cast Logan under a dark shadow for many years. He was universally hated for a long time, and it has taken multiple apologies and a drastic change in Logan Paul the person for him to get to a point in his life where he can share a ring with arguably the greatest boxer of all time. Whatever opinion you may have of Logan Paul, he's come a long way and has had to face the consequences of his actions. And you could say that he's dealt with his issues with some poise. 3 years ago, something like this would have only come out of a dream, but it's real and it's happening. You can say and think whatever you want about Logan Paul, but he's going to make a lot of money for just showing up against Floyd. It doesn't matter what he does in the ring because if he fails, it's what everyone expected. But even if he can land a punch or throw Floyd off guard for an instant, it won't be forgotten very easily. Floyd will most likely win the fight, but there's a very real chance that Logan Paul can win the night. If you thought that was fun, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more videos just like this.